Good day, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to another amazing fire episode of the Takeover Podcast. Today, I've got the one and only Stacey with me today. Welcome, Stacey, to the show. How you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you, Dan?
Just another week, another beautiful week. Blessed to be out here crushing it, but not crushing it as much as you are because you're currently leaving a closing or you're going to a closing, one of the two. That's why you're in the car, right? So,
I'm heading to one, yeah.
So to give you guys a little background about our amazing, incredible guest today. So Stacey has an MBA in leadership, and she's coming into the real estate world. Well, she joined the real estate world after 13 years of corporate medical sales, and currently she's got in assets over $10 million cash flowing through real estate. Not only that, but she's also been featured on the New York Times, Yahoo News, and News Journal. And correct me if I'm wrong, Stacey, but you last year started up a development company called Sugar and Spice Developments. Is that correct?
Yes. That's
So,
awesome.
tell us, take us through your journey a little bit. A little short rundown, because I know that the nitty gritty is going to be the how tos of and the definite don'ts for Airbnb, because we know that that's what you specialize in, short-term rentals. But tell us how you got here. What made you want to change from corporate medical sales over to real estate and then start building your entire portfolio empire?
Yeah. I've succeeded in corporate my whole life. I've always done well in sales, but I don't feel like I totally fit in the corporate box. I never have. I say what's on my mind, and I don't believe in things just because you're told to believe in them and they have to fit the box. So I went through a divorce a couple of years ago, and that was a time where I really had to kind of take a step back and reevaluate everything. And that's when I decided that I wanted to leave corporate, and I put a plan in place on how to do that. And I reverse engineered it where I wanted to be and how I could get there. And real estate was the vehicle that I felt could get me there.
And so far, it looks like you're doing pretty well. I mean, it's so funny. I see you on Facebook because obviously we're Facebook friends, but I see you actually enjoying life. And I feel like that's the key to success nowadays. Everyone always thinks it's like all this loads of money, but the reality is it's, and I talked about this on last week's podcast with Pierre Nadeau, is that buying your time back, right? So tell us more about like what real estate and how this is done for you, like for your life and changing everything, because it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you're a lot happier in life and you're really out there enjoying it, right?
Yeah, so a lot of what my motivation is my children. I have 3 small children, so I can't bring them with me to my medical sales jobs, and sometimes, although it's a pretty flexible industry, there's parameters. It's a 9 to 5. So real estate allows me to homeschool. I'm homeschooling my kids a couple days a week. It allows me to travel more with them. I can bring them onto my projects. This summer we actually spent a good deal of time almost living at my motel project, where they got to be hands-on in the design and doing some construction. So it's really been a lot of fun.
So let's get into that, right? You're talking about motels now, but let's talk about how you got started. Like, let's take a look back at maybe your first or second property and what got you into the actual investing side of things, right? Because a lot of people, they don't know where to start. I mean, I just bought my first Airbnb, I want to say like 4 or 5 months ago. But talk us through how you got started and what it looks like now, because obviously motels are completely different. And I love what you're doing because I'm also like following some of your footsteps as well. So tell us about like how you got started with that. What did your first property look like, and what did you learn from that?
Yeah, sure. So I got into short-term rentals almost by accident. Post divorce, we divided up our assets, and we both invested in real estate, but not really knowing what we were doing. We were renting out properties to our own business, and we had our own employees staying there. So it was a whole different experience than being a true landlord or Airbnb host. So when we divided up the assets, I had 4 properties. 3 of them were new construction townhomes in South Georgia. I didn't want to sell them, but when I refinanced, I was negative cash flow because the interest rates went up a little bit. And I'm like, gosh, what can I do? Because I believed in them as assets. I knew they were going to appreciate and low maintenance because they were new construction. So I waited till the leases expired and I furnished them, and I did midterm rentals. So there's there's a little niche market over there for midterm rentals. And that was going well. But then I would get these lulls, people would come in for a couple months to work, and then there'd be a lull until the next kind of session started. So I put it up on Airbnb. And this was before Airbnb was really like a household name. There wasn't a lot of free YouTube content or anything. And I just like dove right in. And I went and furnished it. I cleaned it myself, everything. And my first review was like 3 stars. And at the time, I didn't know that was like horrible. So I was like, okay, we got about half.
Oh gosh.
So then I was like, all right, I need to hire professionals to do the cleaning. And anyone that knows me knows that's not my strong suit. But so I got, I just learned along the way. I learned by trial and error.
Trial by fire.
Yeah. But once I kind of got my feet wet with that, and I learned more about what Airbnb really is compared to just a head in a bed, I started future projects where I leaned into more of the experience for the guests.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I've seen some recent changes in the Airbnb stuff. Because on the hosting side, we only see one set of things, but on the guest side, obviously we see a whole different one. So there's been a lot of recent changes to Airbnb, and especially on the experience side. So what are you seeing as major changes? Because obviously you're focusing on that. So what should the general investor be focusing on when it comes to these experiences and these recent changes with Airbnb? Because I think that's an untalked about topic, genre, situation, just simply because, like you said, Airbnb blew up the last 2 years. Everyone's been like, Airbnb this, Airbnb that, short-term rental this, let's focus on that. And it got so corporatized that obviously changes had to be made along the way. I mean, I see TikTok videos all the time. They're like, Airbnb's dead. And I'm like, not really. You're just not looking at the changes that's happening behind the scenes. So tell me, what are you doing to change, or what have you already changed, and what the typical investor should be looking at altering when it comes to their current investments?
Yeah, good question. So when we look at Airbnbs, when you compare it to the hotel motel industry, we have to look at what separates them, because the hotel motel industry is not just going to die because Airbnb is taking over post COVID. So they're going to fight back. And how can your Airbnb or your home or whatever it is you're renting out be different from a hotel motel? So whether that's you have a unique structure, whether you have unique decorating and full experience in the property, whether you have different amenities, whether your location is something unique, there has to be something unique to enhance the guest experience, because the guest knows when they go to a hotel what they're going to get. If they stay at a chain, especially, it's very always the same on purpose. So I mean, I stay in both. I stay in hotels sometimes, I stay in Airbnbs, and when I stay in an Airbnb, it's always because of the experience. Like I stayed on a yacht boat. Like I rented a room on Airbnb, and this lady and her husband lived on the boat, and me and my sister rented out one of the rooms, and it was honestly like the coolest trip ever because it was so unique and it was memorable. So you have to incorporate, even if it's little things, incorporate personal touches, unique touches, where there's going to be some memory for people to say, I want to go back to that property I booked on Airbnb because of the kind of coffee you offered, or because they stayed in, a very unique structure, a tree house. It's just something different.
So I'm glad we're going over this topic, and it makes me think more of the Airbnb that I purchased, right? Because we allow pets. And I think that's a niche that we focus on in general, right? Because like you said,
Love it.
just even the simple things can really separate you from a hotel. Because let's face it, most hotels, especially the good ones that people love to stay at, that they're comparing to Airbnbs nowadays, right? You can't just walk in with any old dog, any old cat, and sometimes we've had some very interesting pets as well. But that's kind of what we focus on, is more of like the family group vibe that travels for tournaments, whether it's lacrosse or cheerleading or the pets, and that's kind of the niche that we live in for that one. However, for the next few, we're looking at beachside properties, right? I mean, we've been looking down in the Keys and a few other places, and for us, we want a versatile type of property where maybe they could bring in a camper, an RV, plus a little cabin bungalow kind of deal. And I believe that a lot of people got into Airbnb and might have been misguided when they initially got in as investors, right? They had just a realtor that was like, oh yeah, this will be great for this, great for that, without doing the full-blown research behind it. So getting to that investor thing, what do you think they're missing out on right now as far as looking at the market? Because I know that you're working on motels. This motel that you're working on, how many units is it, out of curiosity?
12. It's
12.
12 rooms. Yes.
Wow. And where is that motel, like right now, out of curiosity? Is it done yet, by the way?
So it was completely done. And then Hurricane Ian decided to come, and I have 7 rooms up and running still, but I have 5 that I have to go back and revisit. The roof part of the roof peeled off, and I got some water damage inside. So, just part of real estate investing when you think you're done.
But the realities of being an owner, right? People don't realize we got a roof, we got an AC, a water heater, we've got, oh gosh, so many different little things. And that's the truth behind it. And so what made you want to focus on motels? Like, was that like the next step up? Tell me more about about where your future investments look like. I mean, is this motel, you've had it for a little while now. Do you love it? Would you recommend it? Is this something that you're going to stay with, or are you going to go bigger?
So I love the little boutique motel space because you can go in and you can make each room unique. So that's where you're kind of different from the hotel motel. So you can't just book a room and get any room. Every room is themed. Every room has something unique about it. It's really driving the experience. I'm in Daytona Beach. I'm not oceanfront. So I had to find different ways to compete with the oceanfront properties. And that's really with the experience in each room that's unique and memorable. And I am pet friendly too. I love that you mentioned that, because I'm pet friendly. Every property I charge a pretty high pet fee, and people pay it all day long because millennials are obsessed with their pets, and they will bring them anywhere, pay anything. And that's a really cool niche to be in.
So I will say that it's millennials, because that's me and my wife for sure, 100%. We have our 2 dogs, and we literally only think of them when we're traveling. And literally recently we've been to a point where, for a conference I was at in Vegas last week, she initially was going to come with me, but one of our dogs just developed some medical conditions. So now even more, we think about traveling with them, just simply for the fact that it's one of those situations. But I will tell you that even the older generations, because my in-laws, they only travel with their little teacup Yorkie, and they will only stay at, and they don't fly, they only drive. So when they come down from New York, they have to stay at specific places on the way. And I will tell the story that during COVID, my sister-in-law caught her and her husband caught COVID. So the day my in-laws arrived, and so we had to find an Airbnb. This is before we owned ours, but we had to find an Airbnb that was pet friendly. So that's huge on my heart, and I think that's something that's really big when it comes to every generation, millennials, older generations. I mean, I think that's something special and huge. And if you look at some of these Airbnbs that I've seen, I mean, sometimes you're staying on a farm or a ranch, and there's cows there, or goats there, or emus there. I've seen a whole bunch of stuff. I got a bigger question for you, and this is a really good one. Managing that much in volume, $10 million plus in assets, how do how do you balance your time, and what kind of automations do you have, and how many hours a week are you actually spending on the check-in process, on the checkout process, on the cleaning process? Tell us about what kind of automations you have, because to be able to manage something like that is highly impressive, right? So tell me more about your strategy and what kind of tools you're using, because I think a lot of investors spend too much time on their properties, if I'm phrasing it correctly.
I agree with that. A big piece of that is removing a lot of the emotion. So, like, you may be in a lot of the Facebook groups, but people get so emotional about a question a guest asks or just little things where you just have to move on from them. But I use Hospitable. So all of my short-term rentals are on that platform. That platform connects with, I use a supply and demand pricing calculator that connects the calendars for my cleaners to notify them when there's a turnover, guests check in, check out, any alterations. I have automated messages set up. So even if a guest messages and they use the keyword beach, it'll auto reply with the location, how far from the beach we are, because that's a common question. So there's some really cool automations. I'm also very involved in my business. I hands-on manage my Airbnbs, but I like enjoy it. So I couldn't even tell you how many hours, because I don't count them. Like I like interacting with my guests. I like making sure that they have a good time. And some weeks it's more than others, like you'll get a week where you just bam, bam, bam. Things aren't going well. And then there'll be weeks where it's smooth sailing. And then on my long-term assets, I have property management. So my time with those is very minimal. And on my fix and flips, that kind of goes in waves. So I have a partner in that company and we have a whole team. So, there's a project like in Winter Garden I just came from where I'm more hands-on with that one. And, but again, that it's what I enjoy. So going to visit the projects and, picking out flooring and staying on top of the projects. I enjoy seeing, especially from like start to finish, when you see like a really rundown house and then you're in the process of seeing it, be redone. And it's a lot of fun.
So what I'm hearing is you got to love it and you got to have a vision for it, right? Because I will tell you personally, I have like visions, but I know that the process is not necessarily what I love, because I love buying projects that are already done too, or at least where all I have to do is just tinker with it a little bit, right? Because obviously, Mava and Julia, I bought their first Airbnb, but I went and changed all of the automation on it because, I have a team of real estate agents and I got to oversee them and grow
Oh,
them.
you bought theirs?
Yeah. I bought the Via Damani one is what I bought. I bought it from them. And it was really interesting too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew they sold it.
Yeah. And what ended up happening was, it was funny because I paid, and this was obviously during the seller's market, but I paid $57K over appraisal. And everyone thought I was nuts. They were like, why'd you do that? Why'd you pay so much money? And I said, listen, you have to realize I didn't just buy the house. I bought the house fully furnished, fully decorated, with 31 nights already for future bookings that turned into 79 nights because the guests ended up extending their stay, and other future bookings as well. So a lot of people didn't understand why I spent so much money on it. And it's because, I value everyone's work, right? And for me, I know where my strong suit is, and it's more in automation and managing versus actually going in and doing it, right? Going in and developing it, doing the fix and flips, doing all that stuff. People always ask why I don't focus on it, and it's because it's not my passion, and I understand that's where my weakness lies, right? So I think it's one of those things that a lot of people need to really understand their limitations when it comes to investing in this. Now, Stacey, I know you've learned a lot trial by fire, but have you attended any events this year, or do you plan to attend any events in the near future when it comes to conferences or maybe seminars that other people should be looking into as well when it comes to investing or even just real estate in general?
So actually, we Sugar and Spice has developed some speaking events, and we're putting on a tour. Our first event's going to be in January. Um, it's all about mindset in real estate. So we did our first event actually on Airbnbs and how to underwrite and purchase Airbnbs to make a sound financial purchase, not just kind of off the hype. And our next event's going to be about just a very wide variety of industry professionals that come from all different backgrounds, with the one similarity that they've been able to lean into real estate to get them to where they want to be. So me and my business partner are single moms with, domestic violence history. We have someone who is in prison. We have people that have overcome addiction. So real estate's an industry where it doesn't discriminate. You don't need to fit in that box like corporate. And I think it's really cool that there's so many unique people with different backgrounds that all can succeed. And we want to really lean into the community to inspire as well. So it's going to be a combination of action items that you can leave and execute, but also a lot of motivation and mindset, because I think that might be even more important than a lot of the information. It's not a secret, it's free on YouTube if you look hard enough. But it's the mindset of the people. So people ask me questions all the time, and the answer is so simple, but they just have to believe in the answer. They have to believe in themselves. And I think that's the hardest part, just as people, that we struggle with.
What I'm hearing is that real estate is the new therapy. I love it. It's one of those things that
it is.
It is.
So the New York Times article was about that. Women investing in real estate as therapy. That was literally the article. That's what it was all about.
So it's funny because now that I'm thinking about it on a higher level, right? Because chatting with you, it makes me realize that there's so many different niches in real estate that it really truly is therapy. Think about it. If you're a servant leader at heart, you can obviously just do the regular real estate agent, just helping everybody buy, sell, and invest. And if it's more of a therapeutic situation, fix and flips are definitely a huge way to go. Just because it's almost like, you're pushing through it, but realizing that there's so many different departments or divisions, I guess, if you will, that you can really focus on anything. You can focus on vets, first-time home buyers. You could be focusing on fix and flips, bigger investors, commercial, you name it. I mean, the opportunities are endless. So if you're watching this and you're struggling through life, you just need to get into real estate is really what it is what it sounds like. Stacey, tell us, do you have the details on the location, on the date in January for your event?
I think we just nailed down January 14th, and we're going to launch in Tampa. We're actually doing it it's not a faith-based event, but we're hosting it at a church because we can accommodate so many people. And there, a lot of people may have a link to their faith that can help inspire. So we're really excited about it. It's a really cool venue. It's where my business partner goes to church, and we'll be able to fit, I think, over 1,000 people if we could get that many people to join.
I like it.
So there's no limitation.
You're gonna have to send me the link right away, because Tampa's only an hour and a half drive from here. So I'm interested for sure. It's gonna be awesome. Tampa's slowly becoming one of those events locations. I've always wondered. I'm why does everybody skip over Orlando? If you look at the major concerts, they're all going to Tampa and everything of that nature. So I love it.
Well, we're going to Orlando too. We will do Orlando too. Our first one's going to be Tampa. Yeah.
I like it.
So you can come to both.
Stacey, let me ask you a question. I like to always end this with two random questions. One that's kind of personal, and one that's kind of just generic for everybody else. So the first one is, what is your favorite local eatery, right? Well, if you're having one of those days where you're just I got to have this type of food, what would you say is your favorite place to go eat at in, let's say, Central Florida, wide open range?
I'm a food snob.
Okay.
I eat very healthy. Maybe Hillstone. I love the vibe out back. The ambiance is awesome. The food is incredible. So that's maybe like where I would go. I feel like
I
you can
like it.
really find down there. Yeah.
Overlooking the little lake right there
Yeah.
on the patio.
Yeah.
It is a wonderful view. I've actually never sat on the patio out there, which is something I'll have to like kind of request next time I go, because I've always wanted to have that view.
Yeah.
And then the second to last question is, if you could give anybody a tip when it comes to starting in real estate, like as a brand new beginner, what would you recommend? Like, what's the number one thing they have to do before they invest?
I would find someone that you can pick their brain. Like find someone that's already doing it, whether it's an official mentor or just a friend or a friend of a friend. Find someone that's doing it and pick their brain. Ask them, the people that they're working with. Um, you know, Having someone hold your hand through the process is really valuable. And I think fear is what holds a lot of people back. So if you can have someone kind of holding your hand through the process and giving you encouragement, I think that can help jumpstart you.
Love it. Love it. Well, Stacey, I appreciate your time. Thank you for carving out some time in your busy schedule this week to join us on the Takeover podcast. Folks, make sure you follow her. I put some of the social media handles of hers and her usernames in the ticker below, and I'll put it in the comments right now, so that way you guys can make sure you give her a follow. She's got some great things that you should always follow up on, some great advice, some upcoming events, and we'll catch you guys this and each and every Wednesday at noon, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care, guys.